You're listening to the ADHD Support Talk Radio Podcast. My name is Tara McGillicuddy, and I am the host of ADHD Support Talk Radio. This episode of ADHD Support Talk Radio is sponsored by the 3rd annual ADHD Women's Palooza. This free online event takes place February 5th through February 10th. You can learn more and sign up by going to womenwithadhd.com. And this week I am rebroadcasting an episode from about 2 years ago with Tara Matlen and Linda Roggli. Tara Matlen and Linda Roggli discuss the reasons why they created the ADHD Women's Palooza event.
Thanks, Tara, so much for having us today. We are so delighted to be here, speaking for myself and perhaps for Terry as well. My website is adddiva.net, and that is the AD Diva Network. It's ADDIVA. I founded the AD Diva Network about 10 years ago to support women with ADHD, and I kind of specialize in women who are 40 and better. And the reason that we are here together, Terry and I are here together, is that we are also co-founding the very first ADHD Women's Palooza, and I'll let Terry tell you a little bit about that.
And I'm Tara Matlen, and I'm a psychotherapist, a coach, writer, and a consultant. And I run my main website is at addconsults.com, but I also run a group coaching program for women with ADHD online at queensofdistraction.com, and I'm also the author of The Queen of Distraction and another book, Survival Tips for Women with ADHD. And I'm thrilled to be here, Tara. Thank you so much for inviting us. Linda alluded to the ADHD Women's Palooza, which it's an interesting story, and I'll get into that later if you're interested. But we put our heads together and developed a program for women with ADHD who would like to learn from the top cream of the crop ADHD experts. And Tara, you are, as you know, included in that bunch, and we're so thrilled to have you as part of that project. And for those of you who would like to register, it's at womenwithadd.com, and we'd love to have you be part of this really cool, exciting program coming up the week of January 12th, 2016.
Okay, great. And I thought it would make sense to have you both on to help share, some information about the Palooza. So we thought today we talk about isolation and shame because it's so common and prevalent when you have ADHD, when you're a woman with ADHD. So Terry and Linda, who would like to start first when it comes to isolation and shame?
If it's okay with you, Linda, we were talking briefly before we went on the air about how I personally have a problem with isolation and shame, and it's partly because many, if not most women, have a lot of shame surrounding their, what we conceive as our I would call it beyond challenged in areas of things that most women, I would say, without ADD seem to flourish in, and that would be things like cooking, entertaining, keeping a house tidy, all the things that Sari Solden, who the real pioneer of this whole thing is, that she talks about in her book, Women with Attention Deficit Disorder. So an example for me personally is I have not had a party in my home probably, I can't even remember how long. So in a sense, it isolates me socially because, how can you go to someone else's party if you're not going to reciprocate and have someone at your home? Or if you forget to call a friend that you haven't seen in 10 years, they're going to just drop you from their radar. So there is a sense of isolation if we feel that we don't measure up to other women who don't have ADHD, which is why I always say, if you have ADHD, find other women who have ADHD, people who understand what you're dealing with, what you're coping with, so that you don't have to go forward living a lifetime of shame. So that's kind of it in a nutshell for me. Linda, maybe you have something to add to that?
Oh, I think you did a great job of summing it up, Terry. I was just thinking when you talked about your own issues with isolation and parties and that kind of stuff, I realized that I was diagnosed, back in the late 1990s, so maybe 97, 98, somewhere in that vicinity, and there really wasn't very much out there. There are only a couple of books, and Terry, yours was one of them, thank goodness, that I was able to pick up and read and feel like I had some connection with other women, but I really spent a lot of time hiding, trying to pretend that I was normal, trying to put on that facade and hope that no one would see behind the curtain, like the Wizard of Oz, if you will. And I just kept trying and trying and trying, but that by definition had to be in isolation because I didn't want anybody else to see how poorly I was doing at trying to make the deadlines and seem like I was normal and make sure that I wouldn't, as I say, wouldn't let that facade drop. And once in a great while, I could do it for a while, and then I could only hold it together for X amount of time, depending on whatever the project was. And once in a great while, someone would see the cracks, and I would kind of fall apart, and I was just completely embarrassed, and I was just going to want to go run away. So I think that's that kind of, I'm trying really hard, and I'm trying to do it, and nobody can look at this because I don't want you to see the bad stuff. I just want to show you the good stuff. And then someone sees it, and then I'm falling completely into shame and just want to, go into a foxhole, if you will. Does that sound familiar?
Oh, I can relate to that. People say to me, oh, you can't have ADD. You've gone to college. You've got a college degree. You're married. You have kids. You seem so put together. And they don't realize the amount of energy. And I'm sure you can relate to this too, how much energy it takes to put on, if you want to call it a facade, but it's, treading water and trying to pass as normal, quotes, whatever. It's a tremendous amount of work, and it explains why so many of us have anxiety or depression or even both, or problems with addictions or eating disorders or all those things that we do to calm ourselves down. It makes so much sense because we're working so much harder than the so-called average normal person, if there is such a thing.
Yeah. I think that's why it's so important that all of us have these online resources, because there's so many women and people out there who feel the same way and just don't know that there's help. I think that's the thing to find. If you find online resources, you can help with that isolation. Just knowing that there are some other people who live their life similar to yours, who have these same challenges and have found solutions too. So I think that's why it's great that both of you are putting on the Women with ADHD Palooza, because it's going to help so many women with ADHD.
One of our speakers said that ADHD is the most highly treatable psychiatric condition there is, that the success rate is extremely high, unlike depression, anxiety, and some of the other things I mentioned. So my hope in the work that I've been doing now for almost 20 years, or maybe about 20 years, is that women will come to these things, these online events like the ADHD Women's Palooza, like your site, Tara, like Linda's work that she does, my Facebook page. I mean, we have so many things out there for women, and my hope is that, let younger women find out what's going on so they don't have to spend the next 20, 30, 40 years living with this shame, living with guilt, living with low self-esteem, living with hiding from themselves, basically. There are so many things out there. When I work with a woman or a group of women and they see all these other people who are just like them, including myself, there's this huge relief, and it's such a bright star for me to see the change that happens early on when women begin to connect with others.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't agree more. This is Linda. It's a little difficult to keep all of our voices separated, but I'm just so you know who I am. But I was just thinking that's a couple of things. A lot of things are coming up. I have ADD. I've got thoughts going all over the place, and which one's going to come out first? No one knows. That's for sure. We were just thinking about the pink ticket, because we have a pink ticket affair at the end of the ADHD Palooza week. It's the 11th, January 11th through the 16th, and on the 16th, which is Saturday, we're actually having a live event so that women can talk to each other. And what's been true for me is I've actually had women email, and I bet you guys have too, that they actually cried when they found my website, because they finally felt like they were home. They finally felt like it wasn't just them. It wasn't their fault. Everything wasn't all, it wasn't some character flaw. It wasn't something that you had to go to the psychologist and get fixed about, because that's what I thought for years. I went to therapy and more therapy and more therapy and more therapy, thinking if I could just be somebody else, I would be much happier, because this is not enough. I'm not enough just the way I am. And what I finally, after years and years of searching and doing lots of, self-enlightenment kinds of things. I mean, psychics, you name it. I tried everything. And finally came to the realization that, you know what, I'm okay just as I am. It's not even I'm okay as I am if I just get those dishes done. It's not I'm okay if I get my desk cleaned off. I'm okay right now, this moment, without doing or being another thing. And I really want to tell the women who are listening to this that you are also enough. Because my brain is saying, oh, yeah, but they're on the radio, and, they have this ADD stuff, and, I can't do all that stuff. They're okay, but I'm still not. And that simply isn't true, because I have been in the depths of depression, to the point of suicidal thought. I have been, higher than a kite, when something great happens, but I always know there's that little tick, tick, tick in the back of my head that says, you know what? The shoe's going to drop and they're going to find out. They're going to discover that you're not as great as you think you are, or they think you are. And I always know it. So I've carried that shame around with me for my entire life. Who knows when it started? Probably when I was a little kid, and I had no idea what ADHD, nor did anybody else with girls at that time. But I think that's another, that kind of follows, leads into another issue, is that so many women with ADHD don't know that they have ADHD, and they are diagnosed with depression, and they are depressed, because I was depressed, but really the root cause of all that depression came because I was trying, again, swimming, paddling so hard, dancing as fast as I could kind of thing. So I just really want women to know that it's not that we have it all together. Or I'm speaking for myself. Let me just speak for me. Tara and Terry, they have it all together.
I've got it all together, Linda.
Oh yeah, I'm perfect. That's sarcasm.
I'm going to get off the show. I'm sorry. I have to be excused. I'm sorry. I have to go sit in my corner and put my little dunce hat on or something.
Yeah.
But the truth is that I don't have it all together. And I told the story recently that I write a blog for Attitude Magazine. Occasionally, when I get around to it, they keep saying, please send us more blogs, and I never have time to do it until they get really angry with me, and then I do it, because it's a deadline, right? And there was an editor who I wrote a very frank article, and I was exposing myself kind of as my foibles, if you will. And she said, "Oh, we can't put this in the magazine because you're a coach, and people would find out that you're trying to help people, and here you are telling people that you're not okay." And I wanted to kill her.
I would too.
That is exactly.
But I found is people relate to that. When I put one of my ADD moments on my blog and show a little bit of vulnerability or a lot, depending on what it is, that's when most people connect. So I think it's really that mixture of, yes, we're vulnerable, yes, we still make mistakes, but we've also found ways to thrive, and we don't feel as badly about it when we have those ADD moments and other issues.
I agree.
But it is scary, Tara. It really is.
Yeah, it is.
When I put myself out there like that, and I think, oh my God, what are people going to think of me? But I still have that same. I want to hide. I don't want anybody to know, even people who might understand.
And it's funny, Linda, because you're so open about your challenges, yet you're still struggling with that. I find, like Tara, this is Tara, this is Terry, that when I write about my vulnerabilities, I get a huge response from people who are feeling the same way and are just so relieved that it's not just them, and here's a so-called expert who also struggles, and I do struggle. But what I'd like to bring up is that, we're always going to have a to-do list that's filled with stuff we need to do. We're always going to have clutter. We're always looking for solutions to these problems, and so they may go away temporarily, but then the piles, they grow again. But what I think we need to remember is to focus on our strengths. And I'm not the type of person that would say ADHD is a gift. That's not my message. My message is find what you are good at and focus on that and share that with the world and celebrate that part of you. So, we all have these gifts, and we tend to hyper-focus on the negative because part of having ADHD is ruminating, obsessing, looking for the dark cloud. So my message to everybody on the show would be, start shifting that negativity and looking at the things that you do well. It doesn't mean that you have to have a degree in whatever. It could be that you're a really good friend, or that you have a good sense of humor, or that you're creative. Everybody has some really strong points, and I think that's one of the biggest problems with women and men with ADHD is this hyper-focus on the negativity. I'm always late. I can't get things done. I can't find my paperwork. My taxes are always in late. Well, let's talk about the good qualities. That's my message.
Very good. What about you, Linda? Do you have a final message you'd like to leave people with?
Well, I think I probably gave the final message in the middle, frankly, and that is that it's really, well, first of all, so maybe I didn't, so let me just start back, let me rewind just a little bit and say that I think one of the things that truly changed my life was I went to an ADD conference, an ADA conference, which is for adults with ADHD, and now I'm involved with that organization as well. And I actually could see other people who were running late, although I will tell you that I was looking through the eyes of they're still okay and I'm not. So my first conference was still kind of not okay. It took several conferences before I was comfortable, but I did create a support group locally, and anyone can do that. And I can hear people going, "Oh, I can't start a support group," but it was through Meetup, which makes it a lot easier. And now I have people in my life who are ADD and forgiving of what I used to consider my foibles. So I think it's really important to have supportive people in your life. My husband, I'm so lucky to have him, and he doesn't love me because of my ADD, and he doesn't love me in spite of my ADD. He just loves me. You know, he loves my spontaneity, not impulsivity, spontaneity. He loves my creativity. He loves the way I look at things differently, and it complements the way he thinks because, let's face it, he's a pathologist, and he looks through a microscope all day. I see the big picture. He sees the microscopic picture. So finding people in your life, and I certainly agree with Terry that focusing on the positive is such an important piece of this, but sometimes I've actually talked to women and probably felt this way myself. I couldn't think of anything positive about me. I could only wear those dark-colored glasses, and it takes other people reflecting back to us, you're really okay. You really are okay. And as much as I heard it, and I just completely deflected it. Oh, yeah, but you don't really know how bad I am. It just takes people hanging in there with you and saying, you know, I really still do like you. You are my friend. I really want you in my life. And having those kind of people, which usually, frankly, are people with ADHD, not always, but sometimes, or tolerant people, I think that's really important. And that kind of brings us full circle, Tara, is back to the isolation and how important it is to know that you are not alone, that isolation is actually kind of an augmenter an enhancer of your ADHD shame. And when we can get out of that isolation, or when I can get out of it, speaking for myself, then I know that I can move forward more easily. And I hope that the women who hear this message will also feel that way.
Well, thank you. And why don't we talk a bit more about the ADHD Palooza, which is a free online event for women with ADHD. Who would like to talk a little bit more about that in depth?
Go ahead, Linda.
Well, the ADHD Palooza, I came up with the name. Terry and I realized that we were talking about this for a couple of years, actually, and realized that both of us had the same vision about creating. We both would have preferred to do something that was live and on-site and in person, but financially that's very difficult for a lot of people to get to, and we wanted to make sure that this event, number one, brought in the absolute top experts, as Terry mentioned before, and it also was accessible to everyone. So yes, you do have to have a computer or access to the Internet, but other than that, you can show up, and we already have hundreds and hundreds of people who have registered. And of course, as Terry mentioned, you can register through Tara's site, which is womenwithadhd.com, and you can go there and register, and you'll get all of the information. We will begin the 11th of January. We have Ned Hallowell, we have Dr. Tom Brown, we have Dr. Stephanie Sarkis, we have Dr. Roberto Olivardia, we have Dr. Ari Tuckman, we have Dr. Stephen Hinshaw. When Terry and I started inviting people to be part of this, they were so enthusiastic. No one said no. We were so thrilled because we have royalty. It's like ADHD royalty. I mean, to be honest with you, here comes my shame again, but I was like, these people are taking my phone calls? Really? Really? They're willing to talk to me? That's really cool. I mean, that's how excited I am about these people. Dr. Patricia Quinn, who's been a pioneer in women's ADHD. And remember that all of this is going to be geared to the female aspects of ADHD. So we're going to talk about hormones. We're going to talk about how you get not just a job, but a job that fits you really, really well with Wilma Feldman. I mean, I'm just almost speechless.
We also have the heart and soul, which is exciting to me, the heart and soul. So we have, and brain. So we have Dr. Russell Barkley, who's talking about the research, so we know, well, what's going on in the world of women with ADHD. And we have Sari Solden, who began this whole movement and whole understanding that women do have ADHD, and these are the special challenges that they face. So what's exciting to me is we have the practical. We have, how do you organize? How do you get rid of clutter? We have the research, and we have some very specific topics like addictions, eating disorders, procrastination,
time management,
relationships. So we cover just about every base that we could come up with. And like Linda said, this is Tara, like Linda said, everybody was so excited to be part of this. And Tara, you did a great job. You're going to talk about self-care.
Self-care, yeah.
Really important. And when we talked about it just today, earlier, that we need to take care of ourselves in order to move forward and, get on with our lives in spite of the ADHD. ADHD. So we do have the top experts in the world coming in.
Absolutely, and I am so grateful that I know that's a theme for you, Tara, is preaching the gospel of ADHD self-care, and I think that there is no more difficult audience and more needed. The message is more needed for women with ADHD, frankly.
Well, I want to thank both you, Linda and Terry, for coming on today and talking about isolation, shame, and ADHD. And definitely make sure you sign up for this free online event at womenwithadhd.com. You're definitely not going to want to miss it. And thank you, everyone, for listening to ADHD Support Talk Radio. Remember, you can find out more about our guests through our website, ADHDsupporttalk.com. Thanks again. Have a great day.